Hey guys, it's Slate from Tutorials and Reviews at the YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about Eclipse and how to use it and how to start basic programming in Java. So what we want to need to do is we're going to do a right click inside the Package Explorer and click New and start a new Java project. Make sure to have the JRE installed for Java to actually compile and execute. So now we're gonna need a project name, so let's call it HelloWorld for now, and click Next. We got our source folder and click Finish for now. So we just created our new HelloWorld project, and look inside the source folder. It actually created a hello package from the previous HelloWorld thing I did. So yeah, let's get rid of all that. There we go. And you're gonna need to create a new class. So I'm gonna delete this right now. And so we click a right click on the package or on the default source folder, whatever you want to do for now, and create a class. So I'm gonna call this Hello World. There we go. Make sure to actually start new classes with an uppercase letter just in case, because Java convention says you gotta do it, and it makes sense to actually do that because classes are basically objects, and with uppercase letter you will know the difference between a function and the class. So let's create this, and what we're gonna do for now, because we only have one class, we're gonna inherit the public static void main, which gives us the opportunity to actually launch our code on the command line. So there we go. Don't look at the console, it was just some stuff I was doing before to prepare for this video. So what we have here right now is our package, which I created previously, so it's still there, but you can create packages like that, and basically it's just to organize the code, and the default package is usually discouraged to use, but for now it doesn't really matter where you're gonna do it. So let's start with some basics. The first thing you want to do is you want to make sure what kind of app or actually program you want to do. So for now we're gonna do a Hello World program, which is pretty easy and doesn't need much thinking, but I'm gonna show you some stuff you might want to use in the future. Don't expect this to be very complex for now, because I'm gonna start adding new stuff to the YouTube channel, and basically just doing a tutorial for some more complex programming stuff later. It's gonna go to using linked lists, to array lists, to other type of collections, and also to use file writing, graphical user interface. But this stuff is going to come up in the future, so this is basically just Java for noobs. So let's start with it. The first thing you want to do is you basically want to show somebody. I wrote a program, so let's start with some easy stuff. What I just did, probably have to show it again. I just typed the words sudo and hit Control and Space, which is an Eclipse feature of auto completion, and this comes in pretty handy, so you don't have to type as much anymore. I'm just gonna delete this real quick. So hit Control and Space, type sudo, and then hit, of course, Control and Space, and you have auto completion, which is pretty awesome. So let's start with a string I want to display when my program runs. What we're gonna do is use the system out print line to show it on the console. So we don't do graphical user interface just yet. And let's start with it. I'm gonna put in a string. String is always in parentheses, so basically I just write hello world. And since I have the public static void main, I'm able to execute this program. So let's just hit the green button right there and hit play. And there we go. We wrote our first program with the words hello world. This is probably not what you want to do, or you still want to learn something, so let's start with that. You can of course use a string. I mistyped that. A string right here. Call it whatever you want to do. I'm just gonna call it hello, and give it some name. Not give it some name, give it some content. So we're gonna fill it with Google me. There you go. Of course, you want to print that again. Oh, I missed a word. There we go. And now I'm able to put this string, because it's already a string, I don't need to put it in parentheses again. So if I would do this, it's gonna print the word hello instead of my string I just declared here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put it in without parentheses, and there we go. Just hit play, and hello world, Google me. So that's pretty cool, because now you're able to use a string and declare it before you actually print it. This is gonna help you later on when you basically want to have users to put in something, and you save it in a string, and then you can print it later if the user wants to see it again or whatever, or you can handle with the strings. Another cool thing which you can do, which I think is really cool, is you can use the collection framework. So we're gonna create a new string, and it's a collection. So basically a collection is a collection of the type, like the string, and added features to it. So you can basically convert to bytes, parse to int, parse to double, and stuff like that with the collection framework, which you can't do with primitive data types like int or other stuff. So let's create a new string and call it temp, which will use hello. And now we come to the collection type of the string, hello, and we're gonna concat another string to Google me, which will just for now be an exclamation mark at the end. Oops, there we go. And where you can see now, I'm basically writing the word, or writing to the string Google me, and concatenate exclamation mark, and save this all in the temp. So why don't I just use this like this? What you will see right there, so if I do it like this, it returns a string, so I have to save it. You can see the public is basically just if it's public or private. It can be called from outside or not. The string is the return value of the function. So basically what I do here, I concat a string, and it's gonna do this in its function and gonna return me the new string, which is the basic string I put in here and concatenate it with another string. So basically we have to pre-save it. So let's do it right here and print the thing. And oh, I didn't print it, sorry, forgot about that. There we go. Now it should work. Yeah, as you can see, I concatenated a string to my other string, but usually this is a lot of stuff to do for just adding an exclamation mark. So there's another way of doing this, which is pretty easy. We're just gonna use the word, the string hello, add a plus sign and equal, which means add to this string, and I'm just gonna add Google me later. So what I did now, I'm basically copying my string, adding it, and copying it back to hello. And what's gonna happen now, it's gonna basically add the string like I wanted to, Google me later. So instead of writing all this and creating a new string, I can just basically reassign my string with this and add some stuff. Or I could just, if I do it like this, give it a new value, which would be just later. That's pretty cool, because it saves you a lot of work, and you don't have to be a RAM hog and make your little app or program a little less eating up RAM. So now we got it. That's basically some simple string handling. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna want to be able to do some stuff. So what we do now is we're gonna use a string, let's call it A, which contains a URL, like this. We're gonna want another string B, which just contains some gibberish like that. And what I want to do is I want to compare those two strings to each other, if the content is equal or not equal or whatever. So I can do it like this. There's different ways of doing this. I like this way. Since a string is a collection, I have different functions I can use, and I want to check if the content equals B, which is pretty cool because it's going to give me a true or false value, and that's basically perfect for if clauses. So if it's true, A equals B, then say yes, it's equal. Else, let's add those just to make the code more readable. Say no, it's not. So what do you think it's gonna happen? So A and B, the content in it doesn't equal, so we should be in the else part. And yep, let's add an S just to correct the spelling. So what we did now is basically we compared two strings and created a if clause which will show yes it's equal, or an else clause which shows no it's not equal. So now we are able to compare strings, and there's different ways of doing that. So let me show you another one. If A compared to B. Let's just copy this. Oh crap. There we go. Now you can see, hey, hold on. It's an integer. Why it's an integer? That's because the compare method shows you a 0 for anything, and 0 is not true or false in Java, so we're gonna ask for if it's equal to 0. If it's not equal, A and B are not equal, it's gonna give you a negative number. If it's equal, it's gonna return a 0. So let's check for 0, and it should go to the else clause again. So let's hit play. No, it's not. So what we're going to do now is we're going to compare A to A. And yes, it's equal. So now you can see the difference between that. There's another thing you might need to do sometime. A contains. So we just want to know if it contains a substring. And let's copy this again, so I don't have to write it all the time. Make contains out of this one, and let's see, we have an address, so we check for this one, and yes, it contains. So basically what we did is use two compare methods. One time the content equals, which you will see if I do this right here, it still won't be equal. See? But if I do this, yes, it's equal, and yes, it contains www. And if I remove this and put a 2 in there, it will say no, it doesn't, as you can see right here. So basically you're now able to compare strings to each other one way or another, and you're able to use the contains. Another thing people often do, which I think is highly dangerous, they're gonna compare strings like that. This usually doesn't work very well. Let's see if we can have a good result this time, because A is not equal B even if they have the same content. But in this case it worked, so we're lucky. But I don't think you should use this too much, because you have a whole collection framework you could use. You can use. So basically, use it. So this works as well, but I would suggest not to use that, because A and B are no numbers. So I would say strings have to be compared like this. just to be on the safe side. Alright, one more thing I want to show you is a very common problem with integers and stuff like that. So we have an integer and we give it a value 0, and it's called a. So, I already got this variable, so let's call it number. Oh, there we go. So, what I have here is I have a number, and it's cool, and I can print it. There you go. So, now it's showing 0. So, what happens if I don't want to initialize this variable? Which is perfectly legit, but if I want to print it, it's not been initialized, so I can't actually print it, so it's going to show me an error. But there's smart people, oh Jesus, this happens so often, so please be careful. They do something like this, so it's initialized. Well, with integers they can't be null, so I use what Eclipse tries to tell me, and yeah, add cast to integer, that's nice, I do that, and boom. Your program just crashed. So what happened here? The int primitive type cannot contain null. So it can only contain numbers, and that's perfectly fine. But what I did here is I cast an object, integer, with the type null, and now the thing happens. You can't assign that, even if it's an integer. Even if I cast null to integer, null is null, and it's basically nothing. There is nothing in it. This happens quite often, so what you try to do is, if you can't initialize it right now, is to get it assigned somewhere. So if I do this inside my code somewhere, if there's an else or if or whatever, I give it a value and that's fine. So now we're fine. But if you can't initialize it right now, then you can't print it, you can't use it, so keep that in mind. Don't use empty numbers. I'm gonna show you a way how to handle this stuff, because sometimes it can happen at runtime when you still haven't downloaded a file or whatever, that you get an exception. So let's try this again. Add the cast to integer, and what you want to do is you want to try to do that, but you might not be able to at runtime, like in a for loop or whatever. You can't do this. So let's try and catch that, so our program doesn't crash. And now we know the thing that could happen. As you can see here is a null pointer exception, so why not just add it? There you go. You have to give it a name, so you know it's a null pointer exception. And what I want to do is print to, for me, just to debug maybe or whatever, or to my user, no number specified. And if you want, you can print the stack as well. I think it was print stack trace. Yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, I don't need to do that. I just need to do that. There we go. And add this, because it's already printing on the command line, so I didn't need to do that. So it's basically like that. What I'm doing, let's add maybe a \n. A \n is basically a new line, so you can start a new line in your string. What I do is, if this causes a null pointer exception, I try, and it causes a null pointer exception, I go to this this one here, I catch it, and I don't let my program crash. I'm just gonna print out no number specified and the stack trace, and it's gonna look like this. So I got the no number specified, I see my stack trace, but my program won't crash. So if I do this, see, it didn't crash, and the stack trace is right here, so I can see, oh, this line is causing it, so that's bad. So let's do it like this. Didn't crash, as you can see, just to make sure you can see it. But if I remove this, you will see what happened right there. It's gonna be bad. So I got all this, and the stack trace was printed, but as you can see, it stopped right here. It stopped right there, and it didn't execute this one. So basically, if you don't want your program to crash, program good, think about it, or try and catch to prevent those things. And that's basically it for today. It's a little bit more than I expected it to be, but anyway, I think you have a little head start on how to use it. So have fun and make sure to leave a comment. Thanks.